Hey everybody, so we're back with our Ed puzzles, and today we're going to be looking at the sort of beginnings of the Islamic and then later the Ottoman Empire. So we want to begin today with uh, kind of the start of the religion Islam, some of its most important principles and ideas, as well as some of the geography of this part of the world. The book starts us off with this this image here, which is of a mosque in Cordoba in Spain. And I remember that a mosque is uh, where Muslim people go to pray. Um, it's not just here. I mean, number one, it's just a beautiful building architecturally. I mean, you see the arches and the kind of like almost candy cane type stripes. Um, some of the statues and paintings in the background, but it's also here to show um, just how far the Islamic empire stretched. Today, we kind of think of Islam as limited to um, as a religion and as limited to the Middle East, mostly in terms of its power. But politically, for several hundred years, this was one of the most powerful empires in the world that spread all the way into Spain in Europe. Okay, so we'll talk more about some of the architecture here. This is a good example. There's also a building or a palace rather in Spain called the Alhambra, which we'll take a look at. Um, yeah, okay. So the first thing that our book talks about, as it always does with our different empires, is the geography of what we would call the Arabian Peninsula. So the Arabian Peninsula is down here. You see where it says Arabia in the middle. Remember, a peninsula is a piece of land that's surrounded by water on three sides. So we see to the west is the Red Sea, to the east is the Persian Gulf, and to the south is the Arabian Sea. So it's surrounded by water on three sides. So that makes it a peninsula. Some things to know that our textbook goes over as far as the uh, geography of Arabia goes. This is a really, number one, as our picture suggests, and as we've probably seen in movies and TV shows, this is a really hot and dry part of the world. There is not much water. It's very difficult to farm there. You kind of have to be very strategic about where you farm. And because it's tough to farm, people move around a lot. In many of our empires, we see people beginning to settle down and turning their farms into villages, and then villages become cities. But with Arabia, for a really long time, you have this group of people that we could call either the Bedouins or the nomads. And they are people that move from place to place so that they can survive and farm um, different places because there's nowhere really in the desert where they can farm for the long term. So there are a lot of like smaller tribes, so smaller groups of people that are related um, somehow. Either uh, they're they're these tribes that are family, and they're usually led by a person called a sheikh, and the sheikh leads them from place to place. And for a while, these different tribes kind of fight each other over the land because again, as big as the area is, there's just not much land that is safe to live on because of the climate being so hot and dry, and because it's so difficult to farm. But we do have so again, if we look at our map, we see most of Arabia is landlocked, like it's all desert, but it is surrounded by water on the coasts. So you start to see cities pop up like we see on our map, Mecca and Medina and Muscat out east, and Jerusalem to the north. Um, these cities pop up on oases, and that's because, again, as we've seen throughout our year together, you need, in order to settle down and create a city or a big village, you need enough water and food to feed the people. And really, the only places in Arabia that have enough water for people to survive drinking and farming are these places that we call oases. And uh, they're this is where the cities pop up, and where people start to live permanently instead of just sort of wandering the desert. Eventually, this city called Mecca becomes the most important city in Arabia, and we'll talk about why in a second. Okay, so again, people eventually start to settle down in these cities, and they start to spread ideas and thoughts. And around the year 600, a man named Muhammad comes along, and he's really interested in religion and in spirituality and in learning. And one day he's visited in a vision by the angel Gabriel, and Gabriel talks to Muhammad about um, sort of the proper way to live, the way to live in the name of God. And that becomes that vision and that sort of conversation between Muhammad and Gabriel becomes the foundation of the religion Islam. Um, the word Islam, it's important to note, means submission to the will of God. Uh, and if you are a Muslim, so somebody who practices Islam, the word Muslim means somebody who has submitted to God. So what's important with Islam is that it's one of our monotheistic religions. It only has one God. At the time, there were different religions in the area that also had one God. You had Judaism and Christianity, but there were also religions in the area that had multiple gods. And so this was sort of a different way of looking at things as having just this one God. Uh, as happens with a lot of religious leaders when their religion is very young, Muhammad kind of got in trouble with the people, with the leaders of his city, Mecca. So Muhammad is living in Mecca. He's preaching and teaching his beliefs and these beliefs of Islam, and it's kind of upsetting the balance of power. So the leaders of Mecca, they force Muhammad to flee. They force him to leave the city, and so a lot of his followers come with him, and they settle down in a city called Medina. And so um, Muhammad establishes more power and establishes more followers. More people are interested in Islam, and eventually he gets an army together, and they march towards Mecca and reconquer it. And it's from Mecca, which, if we look at our map on the previous page, right? So there's Mecca and Medina. Medina is a little more to the north. Mecca is more to the south. So Muhammad and his followers march to Mecca, they take over, and from there they begin to spread the religion of Islam throughout the area. Okay. So what do Muslim people believe? What are the ideas with Islam? So for one, the holy book in Islam is called the Quran. So remember, in Judaism, the holy book is the Torah. In Christianity, it would be the Bible or the New Testament. In Islam, the holy book is the Quran. So some things that Muslim people believe, they do believe in heaven and hell, that your afterlife will be based on how you live on earth. Um, they believe in something called Sharia law. And Sharia law is this big legal system that covers like every aspect of human life, of human behavior. There are rules that you're expected to follow for family life, for living in the community, for your morality, like how you should behave and treat other people, how you should worship and pray, and how you should do business. So that like set of laws is called Sharia law. That's not to be confused with the 5 pillars of Islam, which are about how you live daily life. They're like very clear guidelines what you should do in your daily life. So the 5 pillars of Islam are faith, right? So believing in one God and no other God. 2 would be prayer. So there are different times of day that Muslims are supposed to pray. Fasting. So there's a Muslim uh, holiday or ritual called Ramadan. And during Ramadan, you're expected to fast during daylight hours. So you're not supposed to eat during daylight. And that's sort of showing your faith in God and in Islam. There's something called almsgiving, which is like charity, either helping, helping other people, or giving money to a mosque to like support the religion. And then this last one is called the Hajj, which translates it's like a pilgrimage, which means uh, in Islam there's you're expected to at least once in your lifetime to make this pilgrimage from wherever you are living to um, the city of Mecca. And every year, tons and tons of Muslim people gather in Mecca to celebrate the life of the Prophet Muhammad. And that's one of the 5 pillars of Islam, is that at least once in your life, you make that journey to Mecca to celebrate Muhammad's life. Okay. Um, and then one other thing I mentioned, just a couple of like vocab terms. The places where Muslims pray and where they worship are called mosques. And the people who are kind of the religious leaders at the mosques or the teachers at the mosques, they are called imams. Those 2 words are down here, highlighted yellow, if you want to see how they're spelled. So a mosque is like the center of the Muslim community, and the imam is the teacher who leads the prayer and the sermon. Okay. And then our last sort of section is about the spread of Islam. So Muhammad, the leader of Islam at the time, dies in the year 632. And he doesn't name a successor. So he doesn't name somebody to follow him to be the next leader of this religion. And his kind of friends and advisors come together and they decide that they're going to name Muhammad's father-in-law the next leader of Islam. His name is Abu Bakr, and his title. So the title of the person who leads, who's like the religious leader, the political leader of Islam, is called a caliph. Okay. So the caliph is the like supreme leader of the Muslim empire or of the Islamic empire. He's a religious leader, a political leader, and a military leader, sort of all in one. This is who the people look to. And under the leadership of the early caliphs, so Abu Bakr dies, and then another caliph follows him. It's kind of like the emperors of Rome, or even our presidents, where we have one leads to the next. And so under the next few caliphs or the next few leaders, Islam really begins to spread. As we saw, as we'll see in the slideshow that we do together, the slideshow notes, we'll see how far it is that Islam spreads. And it's at this time that Islam, they're conquering lands and getting wealthy and spreading all these different ideas. And one thing that's interesting that the book points out is that in the Quran, in the holy book, it says that you are not supposed to force the people you conquer to convert. They're supposed to have that choice. They should not be forced into Islam. They should choose it on their own. So when they conquer new people, they do let them continue to practice other religions um, as well. A lot of people do choose to convert to Islam because of they like the ideas around it, and others convert because it's the religion of the most powerful empire in the world at the time, and they might want to gain something out of that. Okay, so going forward, we'll learn about some of the political struggles that happen in the Islamic Empire, um, and how things develop after these early days of uh, the Muslim Empire.